My name is George Darling, and I'm the admissions tutor for the Department of Chemistry here at the University of Liverpool. The talk I'm going to give today is a general introduction to studying chemistry at all universities, not just Liverpool. In this particular year, 90% of the students all had some sort of job or further study after 6 months. Now, the stats are not as good nowadays because obviously the economy's still tanking a bit, but it's still quite good in comparison to other degree programs. Chemistry is still good for employability. This pie chart then just shows you what sort of things they went into. So that's about a quarter. This is aggregated for the BSc and the MChem students, about a quarter into technical things, various other sort of management type roles. Employers that crop up often are things you would maybe expect, like Unilever. Mexichem is a big chemicals company with a plant down at Weston. And then Sellafield also employ a lot of chemists in their various reprocessing techniques. And then you'll always find some reference to something which involves accountancy or one of the big management consultants. So what degree programs are on offer? Generally, they break down into BSc programs, which last for 3 years, typically, although there are 4-year examples. And this is considered more of a general qualification, and you might be able to do, for instance, you'll have more flexibility in terms of course choice. In particular, in Liverpool, third-year BSc students have slightly more course choices than MChem students because they're not required to cover the same amount of core chemistry. Pretty much all BSc programs, in fact, I don't know of any exceptions, they'll be accredited by the Royal Society of Chemistry, and they're given an accreditation which is called Bachelor Accreditation, which only means something really in comparison to the master's programs. Master's programs typically last for 4 years. I know of only a few examples that last for 5 years. They're intended to make a professional scientist. The name is either MChem or MSci, usually. There's actually no difference in the meaning of these. This is really just a choice of the different universities, whether they split their undergraduate master's programs by subject, so you could have MChem or MPhys at the University of Liverpool, or they call them all MSci to cover all of science. So they are, in fact, totally equivalent. They're really dominated by the major research project in the final year, which I'll say a little bit about at the end of the talk. And they have a different accreditation from the Royal Society of Chemistry, which is relevant if you become a professional chemist and you want to have full membership of the Royal Society of Chemistry. This accreditation actually makes a difference to how much extra professional experience you might be required to have before you get full membership. Most universities have a foundation year program, so if something goes wrong with your A-levels and they're not as high as you expected them to be, look out for universities with a foundation year program, because when you pass that, you're guaranteed entry directly into that university in the next year. So it's well worth considering, and usually then they'll give you free choice of what chemistry course you would transfer onto after the foundation year. Okay, that was Liverpool. What do we have on offer from other universities? Well, one popular choice is to spend a year abroad. This is like the chemistry and industry program. Typically, your third year would be spent studying at a foreign university. It can be generic in terms of imperial, so that would be maybe with any university that they have a connection with, basically any country at all. Or it might be more specific in Bristol, where they say chemistry with study in continental Europe. Most of the universities in continental Europe will, of course, teach in their own language. So if you want to do this, you'll have to have an A-level in the language that, of the country you're interested in spending a year in. And you have to realize that your lessons will be in that language, and also your exams will be in that language. So it's quite a difficult option. And in chemistry with study in North America, well, hopefully you won't have so much difficulty with the language. And that again will be with universities that Sheffield have a connection with. If you do the year in industry programs, they're almost all 4-year programs for MChem students. This means that you might have to do courses a year in advance, and you might also have to do courses during your year in industry. in order for you to complete all of the chemistry of an MChem student and still fit in your year of paid employment. If you do the BSc version of this sort of program, then you probably don't have to do courses a year in advance, but there will be some assessment of your year in industry. Typically some small fraction of your degree mark will come from what you've done in industry. I think the only university that I know of where the program is not 4-year and it's a 5-year program is Imperial. So you're doing a regular chemistry degree, and then intercalated into the middle of that program, there'll be your year spent in industry. As I said, you could end up doing courses during your year in industry, typically constructed so that you can do them by distance learning, so you wouldn't have to travel very often to your home university. Instead, most of it will be dealt with by email and various web pages. And of course, your year abroad, it's possible that the teaching might be in English. There are some universities in the Netherlands and most universities in Denmark will teach in English, but typically universities abroad will not teach in English, so you should be aware of that and be happy to do your courses and exams in the language of that country. How are you going to choose the right course? I've already said there's more than 700 courses, so it's not very easy to decide what's the best one for you. If you want a career in chemistry, you think at the moment, then it's best to choose an MChem now. You can always change later. Most universities let students swap between BSc and MChem within the first 2 years. All courses, as far as I know, are accredited by the Royal Society of Chemistry. I don't know any examples which aren't, so that's not really an issue. You might not want to specialise too soon because chemistry is already a very broad subject, so you cover all these things, maths, physics, biology, could be in your chemistry degree, so it's up to you whether you want to immediately specialise, say, in pharmaceutical type chemistry. If you're interested in forensic science, I know we all want to do CSI Miami type things, but it might not help you get a job, not because it's not a good course, simply because there aren't that many jobs in forensic science. And then finally, one of the main things people consider when they look through the courses is, are you going to actually make the grades for these courses? It's not easy to understand what grades the universities are actually going to accept. Now, I better be careful what I say here because I realize I'm being filmed, and some universities might not be very happy with me saying certain things, but never mind. If we look at the grades for Bristol, the published grades for entry next year are 3 A's for BSc and MChem. So they're not making any distinction between the two types of courses. They're just saying if you want to study in Bristol, we expect you to get 3 A's. Now that doesn't mean that every student in Bristol had 3 A's. In fact, in 2012, students got into Bristol with an A and 2 B's, and a small number of students got in even with 3 B's. So this is their target. There can be flexibility. Because they've pitched their target very high, there might perhaps be more flexibility in terms of the number of grades you actually miss. If we look at Liverpool, an A and 2 B's, again, there might be flexibility, but probably in this case, only 1 grade. I can't tell you anything more exact at the moment because we don't know how flexible we can be until we see the exam results for a particular year. So once we've seen the A-level results, we know how many places will be available and we understand how much flexibility we have. In terms of making the grades, I've said there might be some flexibility. General studies and key skills are not usually counted within the 3 main A-levels. However, if you do 3 A-levels and one of them drops down to a low score and you've got an A for general studies, that might then be counted. So it's worth bearing that in mind. The same thing if any of you are doing the Welsh Bac. Often the Welsh Bac will not count as a full A-level, so you'd have to have 3 A-levels, but if one of them dropped down, the Welsh Bac could take the place of that within your considered grades. Most universities don't require an A2 in maths, but they will require a second science. Having said that, though, there's also flexibility there. If you don't have a second science, contact the universities you're interested in and see if they're willing to make an offer based on what you do have. Universities that do require maths, Certainly Oxbridge, Imperial, Bristol, Durham. If you don't have A2 maths, then they won't really make you an offer. I always say it's advisable. It's probably a bit late for you guys to go back and do AS level maths. It's always an advantage to chemistry students. But if you don't have that, the departments will still put on maths courses for your revision so you can get up to speed. And then there will also be some nominal requirement of GCSE maths, but this will be a university-wide requirement, so not really indicative of what they want from chemistry. Other entry routes, there's plenty of them into chemistry. With International Baccalaureate, there'll be some points equivalent. So in Liverpool, ABB is equivalent to 33 points. If you're doing access courses or BTEC National, these will still be accepted, but you might be required to take an extra test. And this is just to make sure, in particular, that the maths background you've picked up from the access course or the BTEC is going to be okay. You can also usually defer entry, as long as you only do it for 1 year. And if it's a few years since you've done your A levels, then that will still be acceptable, as long as it's not too many years. Beyond about 3, the universities might ask you to do something else before you can be considered for entry. Please visit the universities you're interested in. You will find them to be different in character. They'll be different in character within the actual department, and they'll have different facilities on offer. They're going to be different also in terms of size, ranging from perhaps over 200 students in Manchester to maybe 80 students in some smaller universities. So you have to decide what's going to be best for you. And really, is it actually going to help you in your future career? That's something you have to try and make some decision based on maybe the reputation of the university. There are some financial incentives available specifically for chemistry. So there's bursaries available for all subjects, which are means tested, but then within chemistry you might have a chance, well, everywhere will have some kind of prizes, usually not worth a vast amount of money, but there might be some limited industrial scholarships. There aren't as many of these as there used to be, but if you search around you might be able to find some. They're going to be very competitive because there aren't so many of them. For the last 2 years, a number of universities have reintroduced, I should say, some entrance scholarships, and this then is to attract students with high A-level grades. So typically it'll be something like, if you have 3 A's, you'll get some kind of one-off payment from the department, which is, say, of the order of £1,000. Here's a mock-up of a timetable for a first year in Liverpool from the first semester, just to give you some idea. This is the lightest timetable that a student would have. So they're only doing 1 afternoon of practical in the first semester, and then that will double at least in the second semester. And the other afternoon of practical is replaced with some maths courses to bring everyone up to speed on maths. And then you've got various lectures in various subjects. The subsidiary module depends on precisely what degree program you choose and what A levels you have. That could be something within chemistry or something from quite different subjects, even something like archaeology. Some universities will also give out the textbooks so that your first year, your transition into first year is a bit easier, and everyone at least starts from a level playing field. These are the ones we give out in Liverpool at the moment. They're all Oxford University Press books. And in fact, this author, Nick Greaves, is our Director of Teaching. So one of the authors of a textbook is actually teaching here. Year 2 and Year 3 follow some sort of similar pattern to the first year, but Year 4 is completely different. In the second semester, this strange cryptic timetable shows you that absolutely everything is an optional course. So you choose from a range of courses the things that especially suit your interests and what you actually want to do when you finish your degree. The fourth year is dominated by the project. Now this will be the same everywhere because it's covered by Royal Society of Chemistry rules. So this fourth year project accounts for half of your final year mark, which in Liverpool means that it counts for 20% of your entire degree mark. So that's why you're expected to work on this basically every afternoon in the second semester and most afternoons in the first semester. Year 3 also has a research project. These can be more flexible. especially if you're doing a BSc program. So for instance, in Liverpool, as well as pure research programs, we allow students to do research projects which are based around developing web pages, possibly for teaching, or developing experiments for delivery to school pupils if you have an interest in teaching, or other experiments which could be used, say, in museums or some other outreach activity. And then, as I've said, fourth year is dominated by research. The aim is that the results are going to be published in the scientific literature. There are lots of postgraduate opportunities within chemistry as well. I've said that a lot of students go on from our BSc program to MSc and MRes. They're not the same as MChem, MSci. These are postgraduate qualifications, where MChem and MSci are undergraduate qualifications. There's also a large number of PhD places available throughout the country, some industrially sponsored, some sponsored by the government. Generally, you'll need a 2-1 MChem or MSci. So there's, especially if it's government funded, there's this barrier to entry. So you basically want to do as well as you can, or an alternative, you do an MSc and then go on to a PhD program afterwards. Okay, I'll just finish then with career destinations for some of our MChem class from a few years ago. As I've said, a lot of them went on to PhD studies immediately after doing their MChem. Someone went into teaching, and then there's other jobs from outside chemistry, so things nuclear scientists or physiologists still within science or completely outside of science. We'll always find at least one accountant from our graduating class and then some sort of management type job. So that just then, to finish, shows you that the chemistry students will go into a wide variety of subject areas once they graduate. So hopefully I've shown you probably too much information about chemistry and the different options open to you. I hope you go away with an impression that there's a wide range of things you can do and a wide range of jobs available. And let me just finish again by encouraging you to visit all the universities you're interested in. You will get a different experience at each one, and they've got different specialities in particular and different styles. So make sure it's the one that you actually want to go to, rather than just the one that happens to be the easiest or some sort of default. Okay, I'm going to stop there.